Throughout history, artists paint scenes of religion, divinity, and the unknown. Humans have always attempted to attach understanding to something they cannot explain. There have been multiple artworks that seem to depict what looks like the modern-day description of UFOs. Was it just coincidence that artists seem to paint UFOs in their works? Or is it proof that the phenomenon has always been here? Today we will discuss some of the most convincing artworks that seem to depict UFOs. Madonna with Saint Giovanni, the baptism of Christ, the crucifixion of Christ, the celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg, the miracle of snow, and the Annunciation with Saint Emidus. The painting depicts Madonna praying over the infant Jesus and Saint John. In the background, there is a shepherd with his dog on the hillside looking at an object with a distinct circular shape, no wings, and rays of light surrounding it, which seem to be emphasizing it. They are looking up at what appears to fit the exact description of modern-day UFOs. Historians say this object is just an angel bearing the appearance of a cloud, and that, at the time, it was common to consider circular objects in the skies to be angels. Really. They also argue it could be a heavenly manifestation, an angel appearing as light. Right. So this goes back to something I mentioned in my last video about ancient depictions of aliens, that humans will try to look for any explanation of something they do not understand, and they tend to filter things through their belief system, which often will be religion. Like, seriously, do we really think it's more likely that this was supposed to resemble an angel, when all other artworks typically depict angels with wings? Traditional depictions of aliens look basically like a human with wings, although biblically accurate angels tend to look pretty terrifying. This object lacks any kind of body, wings, or human form. It truly is hard to say this fits a description of anything other than the modern-day UFO. And through my research, it's incredibly easy to find artists from the same time period showing angels with wings, and it's incredibly difficult to find anyone else depicting a similar-looking object. But things get even stranger when we look at the baptism of Christ. This is another one of the popular artworks appearing to show a UFO. In this image, John the Baptist is seen baptizing Christ in front of a crowd. Above them appears to be a round object and has 3 beams of light shooting out of it. Scholars explain that the object represents divine light, or the Holy Spirit descending upon Christ, referencing Matthew 3:16, which describes the heavens opening and the Spirit of God descending like a dove during Jesus' baptism. The beams of light, therefore, symbolize divine presence rather than a UFO. Scholars argue that it only looks like a UFO because it's a stylistic variation. There are tons of artworks depicting the baptism of Christ, which do tend to have some sort of light shining down from above, but none look anything similar to the one here. Others argue, just like Madonna with Saint Giovanni, that the level of accuracy compared to a modern-day UFO is unlikely to have just been a coincidence. Additionally, one thing to point out is that the author de Gelder had access to the Vatican archives, which has always been rumored to contain hidden knowledge about life in the universe. Jesus is a common figure in these artworks, with him also being the main subject in the Crucifixion of Christ. In this painting depicting Jesus' crucifixion are 2 humans inside of airborne objects in the top corners of the painting, an orange and red one going to the left and a colder blue one going to the right. Art historians say this is typical in artwork to depict the sun and the moon. It seems like it would have been pretty easy to just depict the sun and the moon. Why would the artist put humans inside of them, signifying that they were divine? Which is exactly what historians say this is about. It's showing the divinity with the sun and the moon. But others point out that in Christianity, the church does not recognize the sun or the moon as divine beings, and at the time of this work, suggesting this would have been considered blasphemy and resulted in punishment all the way up to being put to death. Citizens in Nuremberg, Germany saw what they described as an aerial battle taking place in the sky at sunrise. It included orbs, crosses, cylinders, and a large black arrow-shaped object, and witnesses saw collisions and an object crashing outside of the city. 1 month later, an artist completed a wood carving of the scene with a detailed description of what was witnessed. People initially understood this as having some sort of religious meaning, but found it impossible to decipher and said, "Only God knows." There have been a few different explanations for this event, but all of them miss crucial details. One explanation is that it was simply just an atmospheric phenomenon. Things like sundogs, halos, and light pillars can create similar looking objects around the sun, but this doesn't explain objects colliding or falling from the sky like citizens reported. Another explanation was that it was just a case of mass misinterpretation, where people saw something unusual and described it as a battle in the heavens. Well, there were many witnesses throughout the town, and the imagery is oddly specific, so it's hard to accept that everyone misinterpreted what they were seeing. I'll ask this question and I want you to let me know down in the comments below. If they misinterpreted what they were seeing, what could they possibly have been seeing to match any description of an aerial battle with collisions of orbs, cylinders, and crosses? There's also the idea that it was a meteor shower and that fragmented meteors entered the atmosphere and would explain objects falling to the earth. But this completely dismisses the battle description, nor does it explain the specific shapes of objects seen. And this isn't the only artwork known to depict lots of aerial objects and explained off as a big misunderstanding. The miracle of snow depicts Jesus and Mary on a cloud overlooking a legend of snowfall occurring on a hot summer day in Rome. This is depicting a historical legend of divine intervention that led to snowfall on a hot summer day and has multiple artworks showcasing it. Just like with the other paintings, historians say these clouds are just the artist's attempt at depicting heaven and divinity. However, other interpretations point out that the cloud formations are disc-shaped, closely resembling modern-day descriptions of UFOs. Enthusiasts also point out how the artist included heavy detail in all other aspects of the painting, yet these clouds are simplified and lack any detail. Enthusiasts also cite other UFO sightings that have been linked to weather anomalies, such as the 1954 Florence incident, where multiple egg-shaped crafts were seen hovering over a football stadium, with witnesses observing a silver glitter that appeared to fall from the objects and that the substance looked similar to snowflakes once they were examined on the ground. The Annunciation with Saint Emidus shows the Virgin Mary in a beam of light coming from a round object in the sky. Mainstream art critics interpret this as light from God projecting down onto Mary. They also point out the image of a small dove, and again reference Matthew 3:16. Believers interpret this circular object as a UFO, claiming that this beam of light matches the description of alien abductions, coming down from an object in the sky and striking the person being abducted. But this is one that I think the historian's explanation actually checks out. As we've discussed, this circular object in the sky is said to have been a common symbol at the time. This was often a way artists would portray God and the heavens, and once zooming in, you can even see the images of small angels spinning in the cloud. All of these paintings have an explanation, but which one do you want to believe? The explanations that today we're just misunderstanding everything and it all is just visualizations of divinity? Or are these truly depictions of UFOs? And throughout the hundreds of years, they got explained off as something divine because, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, humans always have to find a way to explain off something they don't understand. So let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are and which painting stuck out to you the most. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.